This show is sponsored by Carpet Direct of Des Moines, Iowa. Welcome to Half Full and a Cup of Joe with Joe Fulford. The show that's always overflowing with optimism and caffeine. Joe's got his game face on and his coffee cup full, ready to dive into the world of football. From the Florida Gators to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and beyond to college and NFL football, Joe's got the analysis, the insights, and the passion to get you pumped up and ready for the game. So sit back, relax, and fill up your cup with Joe. And now from West Des Moines, Iowa, here is Joe Fulford.
And good evening, everybody. We are live coming at you from the confines of West Des Moines, Iowa on a nice, cool night with temperatures that have slowly fallen. And they should be in the mid 60s tonight. So that's kind of like a great change of pace. Welcome to the show. Glad to be back. Had a great week as we were able to, the wife and I went on vacation, and you follow me on Facebook, you know, of all the places that we went to, including the NFL Hall of Fame, which was just magnificent in itself. You know, it's quite a sight to see. I mean, if you ever have the opportunity, one of the things you want to put on your bucket list is go to the NFL Hall of Fame. So much so much tradition involved with it. It's such a great time. I went crazy. You know, I went crazy. Got this Buccaneer hat right here that I'm going to wear throughout the show tonight. Even got me a half full cup of Joe mug that you see right here with my name on it. Voila, got that as well, among other things, including, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I even had to get a pair of Buccaneer gloves. What? Huh? See that? Huh? You know, got that as well. I mean, just exciting as it's all get out. I mean, I just had a great time, among other places that you saw, and get a chance to go out and go to Canton, Ohio, and visit the Hall of Fame. It is just, I mean, it's just fantastic. Went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Had the opportunity to visit it. That is incredible. And even went to Motown. So we all in all, it was just a great time. But of course, I'm glad to be back with all of you. And we're going to have a good time tonight. Coming up, Lauren Meadows. Sorry about that, Mr. LM. Is going to join me here in just a few minutes. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on with the Gators as we get ready for the game Saturday night against Central Florida. A little bit later on, James may come on and talk with us about Baker freaking Mayfield. I mean, just unbelievable as to what that boy has done. It's just been incredible. Speaking of people that are incredible in their own minds, you have to wonder if he does have one, but that's another story altogether. He's a great guy. Very knowledgeable. We've had him here on many, many times. We've had him on so many times that I'm willing to give him a gift certificate someplace, but, you know, I got to figure out where I want to give it to him. So, senior writer for GatorBait.com media, GatorBaitMedia.com magazine, and he has his own show that he'll talk about in just a few minutes. I'm waiting to get on the show, so we got to figure out what's going on there. But anyways, Lauren Meadows, GatorBaitMedia.com, joining me on this edition of Half Full and a Cup of Joe. Always a pleasure to meet you, sir. Well, not meet you. Always have a pleasure to have you on the show. By the way,
how you doing?
Sponsored by the fine people at Carpet Direct for all your carpeting needs in the Des Moines, Iowa area or surrounding counties. Get home by good friend Benton Taylor. Be more happy to set you up with, get you some nice carpeting in there. And before we go on any further, I want to express my heartfelt prayers, condolences to all the people in the state of Florida that have been suffering through Hurricane Helene. My family's safe and sound, thank God. Lauren, your family, everything's all right with you down there?
Yeah, pretty much. We had a little we did have some tree damage to actually right behind me, actually on the roof a little bit. But nothing came into the house, thank God. So
That's great.
so, waiting on some of that stuff. But other than that, it was, could have been much, much worse. So
Yeah,
obviously we were spared the worst of it, no water damage or anything like that. And once again, I agree, just praying for everybody that's going through it, those on the west coast of Florida, and then those in the North Carolina areas, and even, there were people even in Ohio and Indiana and places that had some damage. So just sending out. I mean, it's just one of those things, man, that Mother Nature just can really wreak havoc, and it just is unfortunate. But we were lucky. Only lost power for maybe about 16 hours. And it's good to have friends, man. We have friends that had a generator, so we were able to at least keep the food. I mean, it's just me and my wife, but we were able to keep the food that we had in the freezer, and then actually help out a couple of neighbors, because we have a huge freezer, but it's only two of us, so they were able to put some stuff in there in the fridge as well. That way
that's
they were able
great.
to save this stuff. So but I did. It's funny, man. These kind of things, kind of, it's like reactionary. So the minute that we got power back and we got internet, I literally woke up Saturday morning and bought a generator for myself and a chainsaw. So I'm gonna be ready at least the next time. And you just get, I mean, being new to Florida, you just kind of get used to different things, and it's one of those things. So, but we can get that behind us. We're back to some football this weekend. And I was able to make it to the UCF Colorado game. So was able to get myself together and get down there for that. That was a great experience, and had never been to UCF for a game. Got to see and meet Dion, and just kind of go from there,
My condolences. And by the way, Barbie, my good friend Barbie Foster Higginbottom is watching us tonight. And Barbie, we want to express our thoughts and prayers to you guys. Barbie lives up in Dixie County, the Steenhatchee area. You heard a place called Horseshoe Beach.
I have.
I was there back about 10, 15 years ago doing some construction work. They are literally down on the water, and they have suffered massive destruction. They were still trying to recover from Hurricane Idalia, and now this hit. So my thoughts and prayers, Barbie, are with you guys, Hutch and all them, and I'm constantly thinking of you. So just letting you know. So let's try and put this on a happy note, or I don't know how you want to categorize it. Meeting Dion Sanders. What was that like?
Well, I mean, I went to the press conference, and I should have probably introduced myself, but I just kind of went to the press conference afterwards, and just kind of wanted to see, I mean, it would probably been better to go to Gus Malzahn's presser, but I think in the spirit of just trying to be as knowledgeable about the game as a whole and where this thing is going, I thought it'd be interesting to go and listen to Dion. And what I found is Deion Sanders to be pretty refreshing and pretty genuine. And I think just relative to what we're used to hearing from Billy Napier, you kind of go to some of those pressers and we could almost write them ourselves, Animal. It's like it's almost like we could write him and know exactly what he's going to say. He's going to mention character, and he's going to mention all of our systems being in, and all of these things, but never really give you anything either of himself or his kids. And it was totally different with Deion Sanders. He was very candid. He was very upfront. I thought he treated the press, and I'm not saying Coach Napier is disrespectful or anything, but I thought he treated the press extremely well. Kind of not in a lot of ways, but thanked them for coming, and it kind of went from there. And he was just real about his team, and it was just refreshing. And then he walked out and kind of went on his way. But it was a big win for that program, and And I kind of I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I'm a wait and see kind of guy with that football team. And but it was a good win. It was a win that, they came, I think they were double-digit underdogs and came out of there with a 20-point win. And he had a lot to be proud of. Son played well. Travis Hunter was as good as advertised, and a couple other guys made some plays too. I mean, I had forgot that they had the kid from his name slips my the receiver from Vanderbilt that actually had a decent game against Florida last year. I forgot he was there, and he made a really nice diving catch on a post route that the corner was right there, and he really just wanted the ball more. So, I mean, they've got some tools, but like I said, just going back to Deion, I think it was just refreshing to see somebody be real for once and tell it like it is. And on the Buddy Martin show on Tuesdays, we call it Tell It Like It Is Tuesday, because we try to keep it real and, kind of speak the truth and that kind of thing. But Deion did. And I left there more impressed with him as a coach than I did walking in there. Now, like I said, I haven't seen X and O's and, but all is what you hear. You'd have to be there and things like that. But minus his little incident between the Denver Post writer that they said he can't ask questions, or I don't know what he can't do. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it was just nice to see somebody give of themselves, and he's a man of faith, and seems to be really dialed in. And I have a friend of mine whose son is the starting nose guard, and I actually asked him a question about him. He was very complimentary. His name is Shane Cokes. He's a Dartmouth graduate, and now he's at Colorado, which, for those that think Deion's just recruiting rogue guys, he's got an Ivy League graduate at his one technique. So everybody in that program, and you don't hear a lot of things. Like, I had to correct a friend of mine. You don't hear a lot of, as much as people would like to paint this narrative, the kids don't get in trouble. You don't hear about a lot of things, which I think sometimes when you give the coach credit for keeping kids out of trouble, you should give mom and daddy credit. But that's another story. But I think he's, but like I said, going back to the press conference itself, he was very, very genuine. And I appreciated that, especially coming from, unfortunately, the situation that we're in, where it's kind of just, it's like it's almost scripted and you just get the same thing week in, week out.
Let's go back. I haven't been on in a couple weeks. Saw most of the Florida game.
Mississippi State?
I saw that game. The more I think about this, Lauren, the more I think about it that, the offense doesn't appear to be the problem with this team. It seems to be a defensive side of the ball. And I've noticed it the past couple of games. I don't know if you have noticed it, but does it sound to me like that the defensive guys are just not listening to the coaches? I get that feeling, but I don't know about you.
Well, we haven't talked since after Texas A&M, so I'll give it to you in two parts. Number one,
okay.
I asked Coach Napier after the Texas A&M game. I said, hey, you're saying that you guys are having good practices and things like that. Are you seeing things in practice that then when you get to the game, they're just not doing the same things they were doing in practice?
I heard that.
And he said, yes. So it leads me to believe that either there's a messaging problem in the way things are being taught, or the ability to adjust on the fly, which is what good defenses do. It's just not happening. And when somebody throws them a wrinkle, they just don't handle it well. The second thing I will say is, and it showed up against Mississippi State, where you saw a team that had only rushed for 66 yards against Toledo, rushed for 240, 250 against the Gators, and literally pushed them around. If Mississippi State would have wanted to, and they could have stayed disciplined enough, they really could have almost went old school, 3 yards in a cloud of dust and possibly snuck that football game away. But obviously, when you run high tempo, you got to try to get a couple throws in there, and it's just tough. You got to be who you are. But I saw a team that was very poor. I'm not even going to say undisciplined, poor in technique, particularly in the middle. They are a very, just a poor
Vanilla?
technique team. No, well, you can be vanilla if you get in there and play ball,
Yeah.
but you got to play with pad level. You got to play with good hand placement. You gotta read keys, and you got to do all those things. But most importantly, football is a violent sport. I mean, I don't know if you've heard me say it on the show. It's a game of kings played by savages, and you have to be a savage defense. I don't know if you like. I talk about Lord. I don't know if you watch Lord of the Rings, but the orcs on Lord of the Rings, they're nasty. They get after you. You gotta be nasty, and Florida just does not have that sting that you want from a good defense. And they're not the only ones, but when you look at it from the standpoint, everybody's talking about the quarterback, but if the Florida Gators don't stop anybody, and they're gonna face a angry running defense this weekend, because I'm sure Central Florida feels like obviously they didn't run the ball as effective as they thought they would against Colorado. But also they're coming in like Scotty Luss saying, they coming in very angry, and they're going to want to make a point, and they're going to find out very early and often if like Billy Napier said, that they did get better. And I caution this because we've heard this, we got better in the off season, we heard it in the summer,
but it's not showing.
We heard it in the fall camp, and
Yeah,
now we've heard it after the bye week. And if they go out and basically lay a third egg at home to little brother, I mean, because everybody's little brother to the University of Florida, but UCF is little brother, then it could be. I mean, it could be.
It could get ugly. It could get very ugly.
And so what I would prepare them for is to say, hey, if you got some bullets in that bag, be prepared to score 40 because you may need it. I mean, you think about it. Colorado needed 40, basically.
Yeah.
So you might need 40. You got 40 in that bag because you might need it.
Yeah, Scotty Luss says, now after that embarrassing loss to Colorado, UCF is going to come into our game very angry. Better buckle up because this game may very well likely get very ugly. UCF is always hyped to play us, and ain't nobody afraid of us no more. I read that, and Scotty, thank you for the comment. I read that, and I'm afraid to say it, but he's right. There's not anybody that is afraid of the University of Florida anymore, and that's really kind of pathetic when you stop and think about it.
How do you get football teams to be scared of you? They're not scared of you for throwing the bomb on them or even running it down their throat. They're scared because you make the ball hit the ground.
Yeah.
You make it hit the ground fumbling. You make it hit the ground when you hit people when they're coming over the middle and in the flats, and you take the ball away. And you do it with savagery, which is what Florida has failed to do. It is almost unthinkable how soft they look at times.
Yeah, and plus, and they don't have that rah type of attitude on the field. No. And I'm starting to wonder maybe now. Last year they had it. I mean, they didn't play super great. We all know that. But at least they had that attitude in there. And now that this guy Rob Roberts or whatever his name is come in to anchor the defense, it seems to me like they've gotten even worse. And at this point in time, I don't even know who's calling the defensive plays up in the booth. Is it Austin? Is it Roberts? I don't know.
Well, they were both in the booth for Mississippi State, and usually you have someone who is almost like pseudo defensive coordinator that's on the field. He kind of, if the defensive coordinator is up in the booth or vice versa, somebody you really trust in the booth that could be your eyes and ears and things like that. Billy Napier seemed to express that Ron Roberts will stay up in the booth. I don't know if that means Austin Armstrong comes down. I don't know if they let, Will Harris was a defensive coordinator before, so maybe they let him handle kind of the on-the-field adjustments, things like that. But who's in the booth, who's on the field? I've been told that at least early in the year, I don't know if it's still that way, that there was some discrepancy from the players is who do we listen to? And that should never be a problem. I don't even care if you don't have a coordinator at all. When your staff is collectively brought in, it really shouldn't matter who you listen to because the messaging should be the same. And that's what I talk about when you talk about Monday through Thursday issues, Monday through Thursday problems, is these are things that you iron out in staff meetings. These are things that you iron out in position meetings, but the messaging should all be the same. Now, it may come differently. It may come in a different note, but the message should be the same, which means on third down versus these protection or this formation, this is, we know what we're doing. On first down versus this, we know what we're looking for. If we get this formation, we into this. Now, will they throw us a wrinkle? Yes, but you still are reading the same keys. Football has not changed, and the guards always take you to the football on the run game. It's not going to change. If you're at safety, you see the big picture, see the back, see the receivers. They're going to take, your eyes will not deceive you if you stay as deep as the deepest and you read the eyes of the quarterback. He can't lie to you. So, I think that just some of those simple things, but you got to get there with bad intentions. And that's the biggest point is Florida, when I'm not a big believer in that you need a bunch of criminals to play good defense, but you got to have guys that's got bad intentions. Now, you can be a choir boy. Reggie White was a choir boy on Sunday,
but he nasty.
He got there with bad. You got to get there with bad attitude. Right.
Yeah, exactly. You got to have that nasty attitude. It's like that's truly what they're missing. Davian Benito is a good friend of mine. Says hope all is well. Tough times here in Tampa. Yes, we know that, Davian, and our thoughts and prayers are with you guys down in Tampa with the hurricane. What did you think of Central Florida when you saw them play? Are they a team that we should really take? Okay. Let me put this in a context that doesn't like disrespect them, but are they a team that could be good enough to give Florida a lot of problems?
Honestly, not unless Florida turns the ball over.
Okay.
I really think that then that was one of the I wanted to go look. I wanted to see in person. I just don't know if Florida has anybody that can scare. If UCF has anybody that can scare anybody. Like you got Trent Whitmore, he plays some, but they just don't have a lot. Now the running backs, they got 2 or 3 backs that they could throw at you. Harvey is a bona fide player. He makes you miss. He's got great balance. He's physical. He catch the ball out the backfield. He had a swing route for a 75-yard touchdown against Colorado, basically a wheel route up the sideline, and he was to the crib. But then on defense, they're just okay. They're the same thing. It's just kind of like, obviously tempo has created issues for Florida. So obviously the tempo of what they can do, and then the quarterback, but just like last year at Arkansas, he's not going to hurt you throwing the ball. He's going to hurt you with the feet. And so if you can make him one-dimensional and you can put bodies on him, I mean, he's good. I mean, he's good with the rock in his hands, but it's just not. I mean, I saw the line went from 2.5 to 1. So somebody may know something, but if I'll probably pick Florida. Right now, I'm leaning towards picking Florida by a touchdown. Right now,
I think it's going to be much more than that. I don't think Central Florida is that good of a team, but what do I know?
But they need to lean on them. They can if I mean, you think about it. Colorado was atrocious at running the ball, and they outrushed UCF. So I mean, if you look at it from the standpoint of, I think they've played. Well, they played New Hampshire, Sam Houston State, TCU, which was a shootout, and which, from what I heard from all the UCF people, they were lucky to win, and then they got beat by Colorado. So, you mentioned
go ahead. You mentioned Trent Whittemore. Is that the same guy that used to play Florida last year?
Yes, that is.
That's what I thought.
2 years ago. Yeah, so he was at Florida for 3 years, and then transferred, which I think Florida could use him now, but he transferred and is now has been at UCF the past 2 seasons.
Oh, nice. Back to Deion for just a minute. I mean, with everything that's going on now, we're hearing a lot of talk about the fans at FSU are really pissed off at Mike Norvell. Is Deion kind of aiming for the Florida State job? Do you think that's his long-time goal, to get that Florida State job?
I'm gonna actually say no, and the reason I'm gonna say that is he has done a lot to almost distance himself from Florida State. And you don't see him even when he was like an announcer or things like that. You didn't see him endearing himself to Florida State like some other guys have, like the Marvin Joneses and the Danny Canales and the Warwick Dunns and the Peter Warwick. I mean, you go to FSU game, you're gonna see Peter Warwick. I mean, he's there. Deion, like he came out, and I think he's got his degree from one of the smaller HBCUs, is where he actually got his degree from, and he said, I'm an HBCU grad, really never really jumped on the Florida State thing. I think he, obviously has a lot of love for Coach Bowden and Coach Mickey Andrews, who he gives a lot of credit for making them, but I don't think he's never really piggybacked on it like, I really want to be here. I really want to be there. So I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know where he wants to be, and maybe he in Florida, but I know that there's a lot of Florida State people that aren't very happy with him because of some of the comments and kind of walking away from Florida State. So
interesting.
So I would. It's going to be interesting. Now, what I don't think is going to happen, I think Mike Norvell is going to at least get another year, just because it's tough to fire a guy after he goes undefeated, wins an ACC title.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, why? I mean, that's stupid.
But you also got to think of, and I'm going to take my journalist hat off. I mean, Florida State people, they got a complex about everything. And so
does Alabama fans, but they
got a reason to be.
Exactly.
Florida State fans, they win 20 games, in basketball, and they act like they're going to the Final Four or something, or get ready to hang some banners, or just like I've never seen a team champion. I mean, they were runner-ups in softball and got it handed to them. And I think they hung the runner-up banner. I mean, just think some of that stuff, man. So whatever.
Couple more questions. Speaking of Alabama, great game last Saturday night. I mean, no question. That was, I think that was an instant classic. What we saw. Mm-hmm. Did Georgia expose Alabama quite a bit, you think, in that game, or was it just a case that Georgia just got his act together in the second half, just started playing ball?
I think you had two good football teams that one figured it out first, the other one figured it out later. And I mean, you think about it. I mean, Alabama literally took that blow And then the next play turned around and said game time, So, I mean, you think about it that way. I mean, they scored the winning touchdown literally after Georgia took the lead. So, I mean, I just think when you have two really good football teams and you have really good athletes, I really think Alabama played a really good game from a technical standpoint, played with really good technique, was really sound in the first half. And then I think they kind of leaned on their athleticism, which will always get you in trouble against good people, and kind of lost some technique. If you look at some of the big plays they were giving up, things like that, and I would say that Alabama maybe exposed Georgia because Georgia really was, they got the running game going, but it never had any rhythm or anything like that to it. So, I mean, it was two good football teams. If that game's played on a neutral field 10 times, I would probably say it'd be 5-5, But,
I did too. I think
but I mean, great. I think both quarterbacks proved that they can handle some adversity. Both are future pros. I mean, I just think you have two really, it's like if Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan played 1-on-1 to 12, Kobe might get out on Mike 6-1, 6-2. Then Mike gonna buckle down. Then Mike gonna buckle down. The final score would be 11-12 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things where you had two great teams throwing blows at each other, and it was kind of a tale of two halves. But I think you have that when you have two really good football teams, and both kind of got shook a little bit just at different times in the game.
I know you got to get out here because you got to get ready to do your show. Tell us a little bit about your show and what it's about, and what can we look for it?
Well, I appreciate that. Well, it's still the Buddy Martin show. But I'm now the host on Tuesday nights. Tell it like it is Tuesday, and so now I'm hosting the Buddy Martin show for on Tuesday nights, and most nights we, at least for the fall, we'll have David Whitley, and we'll have Rob Brown from SEC Sideline. It's kind of a regular, and then I'll sprinkle in some guests. I've had my high school quarterback, good friend of mine who played at Michigan for Gary Moeller, and
who was that?
His name is Eric Boykin. So he played at Michigan, and then he finished up. Then he finished up at West Virginia, and then tonight we're going to have Kyle from the Kyle Brass Night from the Black and Gold Robinette, which is basically the SI site for UCF. Is going to come on and join us. So
nice. Nice.
So talk about a little UCF, and then next week we're going to have Andy McCullough, who's a former Tennessee receiver, played with Peerless Price and Joey Kent and Marcus Nash and all those guys with Peyton Manning. He actually caught Peyton Manning's last touchdown pass at Tennessee. So we're going to have him on next week, next Tuesday, talk a little Tennessee, Florida.
And when you see David Whitley, tell him the animal said hello. He knows who I am.
I did. He said,
what did he say? What did he say? Did he remember me?
Yeah, he remembers you. Absolutely. He did. He did. Absolutely.
Tell him about my show. I'd like to have him. I love
absolutely. And I would love to have David on. And I did talk to Buddy. We're gonna make that happen. I talked to him.
Buddy Martin, one of the legendary writers, is going to join me at some point in time. Listen, go get ready for your show. I did not know you were doing Buddy. I did not know you were doing Buddy Martin tonight. But hey, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll be back on next Thursday.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can have a little bit more time to discuss the Florida game and some other things that are happening off the field. So take care of yourself, and we will talk to you later on.
Always a pleasure, man. Thanks.
Always a pleasure. Lauren Meadows of GatorBaitMedia.com, and also host of the Buddy Martin Show that you can find on Facebook and YouTube. Give him a look. He does a great job. Here's surely Jill Fulford here on this edition of Half Full and a Cup of Joe. As you can see right here, Hall of Fame right here, Jill James Ludeman is going to be joining me in just a minute here. So he gets some technical issues here. We'll be joining him in just a minute. Baker freaking Mayfield. Stay with me, people. Baker freaking Mayfield. What a performance that man put on last Sunday afternoon, Raymond James Stadium, as they put a hurting on the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, you heard me say it. They put a hurting on the Philadelphia Eagles. What was it? 33-21 was the final score, but that impairs little to what actually happened. 33-16 actually was the final score. The Bucs went out to as much as 21-0 lead before they didn't have any yards until about 10 minutes into the second quarter. Talk about a dominating defense that limited Philadelphia Eagles to just 227 yards on the day. For the Bucs, he had only 3 penalties for 20 yards. But here's the kicker about it, folks. The defense had 6 sacks on the day. Baker Mayfield, 30 of 47, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns on the afternoon. Rashad White and Buggy Irving both, I didn't know this until looking at this just now, ran the ball 10 times for 49 yards each. Irving was the one that got the touchdown. So even though he tried to make my fantasy football league better, it just did not happen. But a man that always comes on and makes me a happy person, James Ludeman, joins me on this edition of the half full and cup of Joe. How are you, buddy?
Hey, good evening, Joe. What's up, Animal?
You're in the dark, but that's okay. You'll be like
I got some light tonight, not like last week where I was just totally in the dark.
Yeah, just dancing in the dark.
That's right.
So we'll get to one of the greatest games in the history of college football. That is, of course, Florida beating Alabama 2 decades ago. But Bucs defeat the Philadelphia Eagles in a game that, after a bad showing the week before, they just came out and just whipped it big time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, when you're looking at this game on paper, you're seeing an Eagles team that is very up and down. You never kind of know what to expect out of those guys. And listen, I'm not sorry, my dog's going nuts. Give me 2 seconds.
I tell you what, why don't you take care of your dog issues? But in the meantime, let's go back to me here for just a minute, because here's what I want to do. While James getting his technical issues straightened out, let's hear from Todd Bowles himself. He talked with Dan Lucas on his Buck Bonus show aired last Monday. Let's play a little bit of that and listen and see what Todd Bowles had to say in the game last Monday night. Here's Todd Bowles with Dan Lucas of News Channel 8. Let's get this going. Here we go.
All right, Coach. Sunday, you talked about how, you were beaten on both sides of the ball, special teams, even coaching. Go back, you review it. Sometimes it's not as bad as you think it is. What did you see when you looked at the big picture?
I don't think we played well. I don't think we executed. There were some plays early on we could have got off the field defensively. Offensively, we kept shooting ourselves in the foot, not gaining too many yards, running the football, creating second and longs, and that's not a good recipe.
Their quarterback obviously comes in. In college, he was a well-known runner, good with his feet. Do the same rules apply, or did maybe some of the guys not estimate him properly, what he could do in escaping sacks and turning that into positive plays for them?
No, we knew what he could do with his feet. We had him in the pocket a few times. We let him out 2 times, and he hurt us 1 time in the second half. But we knew what he could do, and some of our bigger guys just couldn't grab him.
The pass rush itself, the outside guys, you said you had him contained. I know Anthony Nelson had a couple of runs there in the back, but interior, what is disappointing you the most right now about the interior portion of that push?
Well, those guys are good run guys. They're not necessarily pass rushers, but with the depth we have and the guys that are down, we got to offset that in other ways, and we got to get more from the outside. But we do got a little more get a little more push in the pocket from the inside guys.
Was communication an issue at all in the back?
Not at all. It shouldn't have been an issue at all. Everything we've run, we've been practicing since training camp.
Baker Mayfield also can get it done with his feet. Were there sometimes he probably should have run a little bit more, but he hung in there in the pocket?
No, he should have run a little bit less when he was running out of the pocket. He's not Lamar Jackson. You like him to run at certain times, but him running too much is not a good recipe for us winning. And with the 7 sacks, some of the pressure was from the line. Some interior pressure got through. Sometimes we got to get rid of the ball a little quicker, but we don't need him to run that much.
He took responsibility for some of the sacks. He didn't say which ones in particular, but what is the quarterback's role in an offense like this where, okay, yeah, you do need to get rid of that ball because everybody else did what they could on that play?
I mean, there are times he's got to get rid of the ball, and there were a few times it came up the middle. So it goes hand in hand. They both got an offensive line has to play well, and the quarterback has to understand when he has to get rid of the ball.
All right, it's no secret that teams.
All right, we'll get back to more top bowls here in just a little bit. James Ludeman joins me back, and listening to top bowls, he seems very pleased by what happened during the course of the game, but he's kind of a little timid about Baker Mayfield running those plays.
Well, I think he's absolutely right when he says, that Baker Mayfield is not Lamar Jackson. And I think, listen, when you're looking at it from a coaching perspective, and I see exactly where he's coming from. You want your quarterback. Yes, there's some times when the pocket will collapse and you got to make a play. But I think to be totally dependent upon Baker to just shoulder the load of the rushing is something that I think he's tried to do. And granted, to Baker's, success, he's been able to make good plays out of it. But I think if you're a coach, you want to see a quarterback stand in there and get it to your star receivers. And listen, I thought he did a great job of that this past Sunday. Listen, when you lose to the Broncos like that, and it's just really it's an embarrassing defeat. They made Bo Nix look like we talked about it last week. You made Bo Nix look like a Heisman Trophy winner. And granted, he's a good talent, but he's not what we saw last week against Tampa Bay. And so for the Bucs to come in a very hostile environment, even at home, the Eagles fans travel well. We know that. So we knew what we were going to see. But for Baker to come out and play the way he did this week, I saw a stat or some scoring line, I believe it was, graphic that showed the total yards. I think at one point it was like 245 for the Bucs to 0 yards for the Eagles.
That's what I was talking about.
Well, and I also want to put this into perspective too. They were also without their 2 receivers in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. Those 2 guys are difference makers. Now, I'm not saying that the Bucs couldn't have won this game with those 2 guys being in, but it may have been a lot closer because what happens is when you take those 2 guys out, you're depending upon your running game. And I'm going to tell you right now, the run game, outside of one rush from Saquon Barkley that was for more than 15 yards, the run game was really non-existent for the Eagles, and that was really shocking to me. But then again, you look back, and even over the last 4 or 5 years, and Joe, you know this, the Bucs have been a very good team against the run. They haven't been able to run the ball well themselves, but they've made up for it by being able to stop the run against them. So that's something that was very mismatched. For the Bucs and for the Eagles. And I think that was a real big difference of the game. It's just Jalen Hurts was not able to get any kind of momentum. And every time there was momentum, something would happen, whether it was a Levante David forced fumble or just not being able to get into the end zone, and things like that. So give this Buccaneer defense a lot of credit for how they responded to what was a pretty embarrassing loss at home the week before, and give this coaching staff a lot of credit for their adjustment because they truly did. They made the adjustments throughout the week, and it showed it. And listen, Vita Vea being back was huge. I was really excited to see him back. I know initially it didn't look too good, but there's still some pieces from this team that are missing. And if they're playing at this high a level with those guys missing, just imagine how good they're going to be when these guys like Luke Gedeke come back. So, definitely. And Antoine Winfield didn't play. I mean, you're talking about two guys that are keys at their positions. So, listen, this is a total team win. Mike Evans, what more can you say about Mike Evans? Had a great game, was clutch, made some great catches. And Chris Godwin was there. Congrats to Bucky Irving getting his first rushing touchdown in the
Yes,
NFL.
yes.
And fans were chanting Bucky, Bucky at one point in the game. So that's got to be a little concerning to Rashad White. But that's that. If those two guys can keep going what they've been doing, again, this Buccaneers defense, this team as a whole, in my opinion, Joe, and I want to know if you agree with this. This is my question for you: are the Bucs the team that no one wants to play right now? Because the thing is, you
Yeah.
look at the Denver game and you go, well, they didn't look too good in that game. But you look at the other wins they've had against, first of all, the Commanders, who, by the way, are 3-1 with Jalen Daniels. Who saw that coming? And then you beat an Eagles team who was in the Super Bowl recently. Granted, they made it to the playoffs last year after skidding the last part of the season. And then you beat the Lions, who won by 2 touchdowns last night. So I mean, again, you look at this and go, the Bucs have beaten quality teams, and that's why I'm saying I think this team right now is the team that people see on their schedule, and they go, man, we're going to have to really play good football because this Buccaneers team, the whole team is clicking, and it's really exciting if you're a Bucs fan to watch, because a lot of people had us written off. And listen, I know this week is a short week. I know we're going to talk about the Atlanta game, but this week and next week you got 2 divisional opponents, and both of which are coming off pretty bad losses, by the way. So if you're the Bucs, you could take these next 2 weeks to really kind of stamp your name on the division and work toward that division title, which is part of the first, which is part of the goal of the season, win the division. So.
Okay, hang on. By the way, that's James Ludeman dancing in the dark on this edition of the Animal Football of a Half Full and Cup of Joe, sponsored by the fine people at Carpet Direct. And he mentions about Atlanta. The Bucs play Atlanta this coming Thursday night, which is why our show is on tonight. So we want to emphasize that. They take on Atlanta. Then they're going to have 10 days off. They take on the Saints at New Orleans. By the way, the Atlanta game is at Atlanta, so that that puts more of a burden on the Buccaneers. So it's not a long trip whatsoever. They travel to New Orleans, and then they come back home for an ESPN Monday night game against the Baltimore Ravens. And I mean, that is going to be a knockdown, drag out fight. I saw Baltimore play last night, and I was pretty impressed with them. Not overly impressed. I mean, I think the Bucs are going to take care of them pretty much, but we'll see what happens.
Todd Monken returns to Tampa, by the way.
Yes,
in that game.
yes,
So he's the offensive coordinator for Baltimore.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
He makes
his
return
back to Tampa. Yep.
Oh yeah, so that's going to be a good game. Before we get to other things, I want to talk about you and what's going on with you, Hurricane Helene. First of all, how are things as far as your situation? Everything fine? Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, everything's good. We thankfully, we live in Tennessee, so we didn't get too much but rain.
Oh, that's right.
I know there were some pretty rough places. My whole family lives in the Tampa Bay area, so seeing a lot of my hometown underwater was not very fun. Seeing places that I lived in and went to and Madeira Beach and Treasure Island. Treasure Island had a
Treasure
big
Island.
seawall collapse, and basically the whole
Oh,
island went underwater. John's
went
Pass down there
underwater.
is
Yeah.
completely destroyed. So you just gotta pray for those folks, and thankfully my family's doing okay, and that's
Good.
good news.
Good.
And stuff like that. But yeah, man, it's just to see the devastation that's still being dealt with today. After that was insane. I mean, I'm not a weather guy by any stretch, but I know a storm is bad when you're talking a Category 2 hurricane hitting the city of Atlanta. Atlanta, Georgia had a Cat 2 hit them. I mean, that's insane. But yeah, definitely prayers up for everybody affected by that, and thankfully we're doing okay here.
Okay, so I don't know if you saw it earlier, but I took the week off, did a lot of traveling.
Yeah, I saw that.
Went to the NFL Hall of Fame, got
Right.
these gloves, bought these gloves. Even James when we talked about Half Full and Cup of Joe, Pro Football Hall of Fame, Cup of Joe. There you go, and
a literal cup of Joe. I like it,
including the coach's hat, not the official hat, but got that. So I bankrupt my credit card, but that's another story altogether. So but it was worth it. So I have to take some time on that. I tell you, what's also great was the game Saturday night, Alabama against Georgia. Was this and is everybody saying this was an instant classic? In your mind, do you think that's what it was? I somehow or another. I admire Georgia for coming back, and they really exposed Alabama in a lot of ways in that second half. But I was really surprised that Alabama came back and scored as quickly as they did. You would think they would want to hold the ball more and not give Georgia any time.
Well, and now to kind of touch on your first point, when you're talking about some great games in college football, that's got to be right up there toward the top. Definitely a top 5 for an Alabama fan or Georgia fan. I think even though Georgia lost the game, for Carson Beck to do what he did in the second half of that game, I'm going to give credit where it's due. Because I'm going to tell you, Carson Beck looked lost the entire first half of that game.
Oh my gosh, yes, I saw.
Could not complete a pass. At one point he threw right to an Alabama receiver. There was not a receiver within 10 yards of that throw. I don't know what the miscommunication was on that play specifically. But to Lauren's point, and I got to hear Lauren kind of chat a little bit about it. I think this was more showing of what Georgia is. I think I text you this, that I think Kentucky exposed Georgia. And I think the difference in the game was you have a lot more athletes for the University of Alabama than you do at the University of Georgia. And that's not a shot at Georgia and saying they don't have athletes. That's not what I mean. But when you look at a Kentucky team who takes, I think the score was 13-12, who took Georgia to the absolute limit. And then you sit there, if you're Kalen DeBoer and you're game planning for this and saying, okay, I think we have athletes who can kind of get us over the hump. Now, the second half of that game was just Georgia really being Georgia, right? Defensively, they were very good. They didn't make a lot of mistakes. Offensively, they started to click. They started to gel. I think Alabama maybe rested on their lead a little bit. I think that was part of the problem because we've seen in history when you rest on your laurels, then bad things tend to happen. So I think that was part of it. But for Alabama to respond the way they did with that touchdown, with a 17-year-old, by the way, that's just all everybody wants to talk about is, oh my gosh, he's 17 and he made these crazy plays. And they're absolutely right. But it was really just the athletic ability of Jalen Milroe. I thought Jalen played a very good game overall, especially in the first half. But even in the second half, he didn't play poorly. They just unfortunately were kind of the victims of their own demise a lot of times. And the other thing about Alabama, and this is kind of the when you say Georgia exposed Alabama, I think Georgia did a good job of attacking a very young secondary. And that's the difference in the game. There's not a whole lot outside of Malachi Moore, who's a graduate student who's probably getting ready to go to the NFL. Outside of him, there's a lot of freshmen and sophomore. So you're talking about guys who I think they said only a few guys had actually played in a Georgia Alabama game previous to this. So it's a lot of young mistakes in the second half. It's a lot of Georgia being and Kirby Smart and his staff saying, you know what, I understand right now we're down, but all we can do is keep playing the game. That's what I tell my son. If things don't go well, that's fine. Next play. If it doesn't work out in the first half, guess what? You got a whole nother half to fix it. And
Yeah,
they did a good job of that. And
they
I give
did.
Kirby
They
Smart a
really
lot of
did.
credit. I think people sleep on how good Kirby Smart is.
I know.
I would argue that Kirby Smart is probably one of the top three coaches in college football right now. And even top three, you could put him number one and have a full argument, and that argument would be valid. Because what he's been able to do
Well,
with this Georgia program is outstanding.
okay, real quick, because I know you gotta go. I know you gotta go here in just a minute. Okay, give me your top three.
Oh my gosh.
See, I'm
I
putting
def-
you on the spot,
I
So okay, give
yeah.
me.
Listen, if you're talking about, and really a lot of this would depend on what your guidelines are for coaching. But if we're just naming
Right,
coaches,
right
I
now,
think
right now,
Kirby Smart is there. I
I
I
think
know
that's
I know this is
one.
not going to be a very popular opinion right now, but I think Dabo Sweeney is there.
Yes,
I think Dabo is a top three coach. And then I'm going to tell you this, and this also may be another surprise to you. And even though they lost to Kentucky, I'm putting Lane Kiffin there. I know that's going to get a lot of flack because of the loss they took against Kentucky this week. But what Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss is something where I don't believe Ole Miss is going to be his last stop.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. I don't think he comes to Florida right now. I think Ole Miss is going to try and sign him to a bigger
Yeah,
deal. But I'll disagree. I'll agree with you on two of the three. Link as far as Dabo and Kirby Smart. But the third one, I'm going to say Mark Stoops. Look what he's done in Kentucky, and look at the program that
yeah,
he has
I
built.
would agree with
You
that.
know, you
Yeah,
know. So I
but
mean,
the difference is, and the
but
difference between Lane Kiffin and Mark Stoops, though, and I think that's where your argument is totally valid, and I can see that. But again, it would really depend. Talking about wins and losses, I think you put Lane Kiffin above Mark Stoops. But if you're talking
yeah,
about taking a program out of obscurity and putting them into national attention, Kentucky does this every year though. They have that one game that nobody thinks they're going to even compete in, and then
well,
they
look at
just they show
look at a
out.
couple. Well, look at a couple years ago. They took on Florida. Everybody thought Florida was going to win the game. They come in and they upset Florida and upset Dan Mullen, and look what happened there. So that's
Well,
another
that's the
story
same thing with Ole Miss this
altogether.
past Saturday. I mean,
Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
thought Ole
yeah.
Miss was going to womp all over them, and they didn't. I'm kind of
Now how they respond to that is going to be interesting. Listen, I know you got to go.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
so much for joining me at the last minute. I'm going to be back on next Thursday. Got more time. We'll talk about what's going on and your show that you have going on. When is it?
To be determined.
Got you. Okay.
Still
All
working
right.
on stuff.
Okay. Okay. Great. Listen, get out of here. Get in the light, and we'll talk to you later on,
All
brother.
right, man.
All right, thank you. That is James Ludeman giving us his take on what's happened with Alabama Georgia game. It really was a great game. I just got a couple. We got a couple more minutes to go because I know everybody wants to see something here. So let's give you an insight into the games going on this week. Okay, so let's see here. So the games that are going on this week, obviously Tampa at Atlanta, which is why our show is on tonight. That's going to be on Prime Video. That would be at 7:15 Central Time. Um, I'm thinking seriously about doing a play-by-play thing or commentary on the game. I don't know if you guys want that. If you do, shoot me a message on Facebook, and we'll see what we can do. Sunday, great matchups. The Jets will be at Minnesota. That is the 8:30 game in London. Excuse me. Carolina will be at Chicago, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Miami, New England. Miami has some trouble going on there. Cleveland at Washington, Indianapolis at Jacksonville. Can you believe what's happened with Jacksonville? 0-4 on the year. Who would have ever thought that? Buffalo at Houston, Las Vegas at Denver, Arizona, San Francisco, Green Bay, LA, the Giants at Seattle, and 7:30 that night, Dallas at Pittsburgh. Then Monday night, New Orleans will be at Kansas City. 4 teams have to bye this week. It'll be Detroit, Tennessee, Philadelphia, and LA. Now, let's talk about the games that are going on in college football this week. You got 2 games on Thursday. No big news teams. Friday, Michigan State will be at number 6 Oregon State. I would love to see Michigan State pick it up a little bit. Saturday, UCLA at Penn State. Missouri will be at Texas A&M. Other games that I'm sure we're going to follow. Auburn will be at Georgia, 2:30 on ABC. Central Time, by the way. Ole Miss will be at South Carolina. Let's see. You got Rutgers at Nebraska. Alabama will be at Vanderbilt, 3:15 game on the SEC Network. Clemson will be at Florida State. Tennessee will be at Arkansas. By the way, the Tennessee game a week from this coming Saturday, that'd be a 7 o'clock game. That would be on ESPN. So be sure to check that out. Central Florida at Florida. That's at 6:45 on the SEC Network. The Canes will be at Cal, and then Texas Tech will be at Arizona. And one of the teams I don't see on here is Notre Dame. Now, the reason why I mention that is because during our trip, we have the opportunity to go visit the Notre Dame campus. And it's just beautiful, just amazing. And I'll be posting pictures of that here on Facebook in just a matter of days. Look, I want to thank everybody for joining me here tonight on this edition of Half Full Cup of Joe. I want to thank David Benito, Scotty Lutz, Peter Collins, Barbie Higginbottom joining me. Again, thoughts and prayers with all you guys up there in the Dixie County and all along the East Coast. Thoughts and prayers are with you in the state of Florida and all over. Thanks to James Ludeman for joining me. Thank you for Lauren Meadows joining me. It's been great. Y'all have a great night. We'll be back Thursday night. We'll talk about review the Central Florida game. We'll review the Buccaneer game against the Atlanta Falcons. Again, if you want me to do a commentary on it, hit me up and we'll see what we can do with that. Thank you all for joining me here tonight. It's been great. And we'll see you all next time. Have a good night.
Thanks for joining Joe Fulford on Half Full and a Cup of Joe. Don't forget to tune in next time for more football talk, analysis, and fun. Follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things Half Full and a Cup of Joe. And remember, always keep your cup half full and your team spirit full. See you next time. Thanks for joining Joe Fulford on Half Full and a Cup of Joe. Don't forget to tune in next time for